Hey guys, I'm Kate. Welcome back to my channel, and today I have a cappuccino in my NaNoWriMo mug. Ooh, It might move around over the course of the video. As well as, slightly more controversial, some candy corn. I freaking love candy corn, y'all. And I have both of those things today because I want to kind of just hunker down and chat for a bit about something that has been plaguing me, I guess. So ever since I had the idea for Project Death, ever since I sort of started to work on it back during April's Camp NaNoWriMo, what ended up happening is that people said that part of the premise reminded them of Death Note. Let me say now, I have not watched Death Note. So although I know that no real bleed over has happened yet, and I say yet because we'll get there. Do I watch it? We're gonna discuss. I did know ahead of time that like the idea of having a god of death ruling over something is nothing new in fiction, nor is the importance of names. The actual inspiration was that my dad and his friend were having a conversation, and his friend kept like talking about someone, and then they'd find out like a couple weeks later that that person then up and died. So I took that, I kind of thought about Rumpelstiltskin. I just love death. I'm gonna use another example here in a minute where that makes more sense than I'm just saying that, but I love death. What can you do? So anyways, the thing is that I know part of my project is not original, right? Is anything original? That's the question I am posing. What is original? After the thousands of years that human history has been recording and transcribing stuff, not even just like passing down stories verbally, which this is where when I ponder about the universe, it just seems so vast and I feel so small, which is great and wonderful, but also just like my mind almost can't comprehend how many people have walked the earth before me. Oh man, okay, that's not the point. Is the coffee gonna help, or is that I feel like I'm already kind of up here? Anyways, right. Okay, originality. There have been so many millions of stories told, so many millions of stories read and heard and loved and enjoyed, that the idea that someone can come up with something kind of revolutionary seems absurd and a little bit egotistical in some ways too. Like, are you telling me that you are doing something that no one else has ever done before? And let's go ahead and like use vampires as an example here. I know it's easy, but that's what we're gonna do, because vampires as a concept, not original, not now. But I mean, you have frickin' Anne Rice vampires, you have Stephanie Meyer vampires, you have Nosferatu vampires, you have Renee Ahdieh is coming out with a new young adult book that has vampires in it, hopefully bringing a new wave of supernatural. That's what I want again in my life. Anyways, the point is, every evolution or every writer is going to have a different take on vampires, which when you really think about it, is a very specific subset in itself. So when we're talking about originality, it's like, oh, it's vampires that do X, or like a supernatural boarding school. How many supernatural boarding school stories have there been? A lot. I know, because I have read them, because I love them. And I would be so upset if some of my favorite writers didn't do their take on a supernatural boarding school because it had been done before. And that's kind of the heart, I guess, of what I'm trying to get to, because I don't think this is a pep talk. Is this a pep talk? It's kind of a pep talk. It's a pep talk for me. I think especially going into NaNoWriMo, there's already a lot that feels stacked up against you, and to be told that your story isn't original, or to like realize that your story isn't original, can feel kind of crushing. But the whole point of my earlier tirade is that nothing is original, and it's always gonna be your take on it, right? Like that part of it isn't new, it's just something that I think writers, we always have these insecurities that we're gonna struggle with, and that's just a recurring one, that no matter how many stories you've written before, some part of you is always gonna worry that someone else has done it before you, someone else has done it better than you, someone else has done it before you and better than you, someone else in the future will one day do it way better than you. Like, it's just all of these things, right? So I guess what I'm trying to tell myself, and what I'm trying to tell you guys in this crazy, not a pep talk, is to not let that be an obstacle during NaNoWriMo. And as you're writing, if it's not a project you've written before, as you're writing, there's so much that can evolve that even if you do have, like, in quotes, a simplistic idea, like even if your idea was a vampire at a boarding school, you're gonna make that so different than I would make it right now. Even like a vampire is attending a boarding school for the first time and they're on an adventure to find their missing friend who's been stolen for blood. I don't know. Anyways, you could have all of those things and we would still, everyone watching would still create entirely different stories, not just in tone and overall message, in the way the characters act, behave, what they're after, what they want, what they desire, like all of these things, right? They'd be so many different stories. It's hard when I know that and yet I can still be nervous sometimes when I think about Project Death and wonder if Death Note has done it way better and before me. And millions of people have loved Death Note, so I'm just sitting here like, uh-oh. But also, I should say that even the people who have told me that it sounds like Death Note have, again, kind of like with vampires or with like supernatural boarding schools, been really excited for my story, because the people who like Death Note, that might be perfect for me to use as an example, saying like my story's like a Death Note meets whatever, to give people an idea so that if you like Death Note, maybe you'll really like my story and the changes that I've made or the ways that the stories are different. So maybe it's like changing the mindset from a negative to a positive. Anyways, I guess I felt like I needed to do this to get it off of my chest. And also, I'm contemplating and maybe want advice on if I should actually watch Death Note. Maybe as part of my prep. Maybe to see what they did and like, would it put what fears I still have to bed if I watch it and actually our stories are nothing alike. Because really the similarities are like one person can kill, I think there's like a god of death, and also like there's names can be traded kind of thing. But having said all of that, like mine follows this main character who's maybe in love with her best friend, who's having to deal with this house of assassins, keeping her own secret, and also wondering why maybe she's able to do these things. And maybe all of those elements are in Death Note, I don't know, but it'll be one of those things that like, yeah, we're gonna go back to, I'll still tell it different, oh my god. So this is great, cool, awesome. Should I watch Death Note? I don't know. What would you do? Fellow writer, would you consume the thing that you've heard your story is like, or should I not do any of it for fear that it actually infiltrates my own story when it wouldn't have before? Because when I'm reading and writing at the same time, I purposely avoid reading young adult contemporary when I'm writing a young adult contemporary, you know what I mean? So maybe for me this is a bad idea, but for you, could it potentially be a good idea? When you hear that there are like comparables, let's say, within the marketplace for your book, do you seek out those comparables so that you know and can explain how yours is different, the twists that you have that they don't have, etc.? Does that make sense as an actual question? Another kind of part of this discussion that I've had happen to me before is with the Cassandra Clare books. They're called Shadow Hunters, and way back when, before I knew of the existence of these books, though certainly not before the actual existence of the books, I just hadn't read them and didn't hear about them. I'm talking like early 2010s. I also had a book that I wanted to make that also dealt with death in some capacity. This is where is this a sign? Am I just really into death? Maybe I'm trying to work through something, I don't know. But the main character was a shadow hunter, someone who went around, it's kind of like a ghost hunter. It's kind of like a, you know, again, not necessarily an original idea, but the actual term for them was shadow hunters. And so then when I found out about Cassandra Clare's books, it did put a little bit of a stake in that story for me, if only because I had been so set on the shadow hunters thing at the time that trying to come up with something that else I wanted to call them could not do. So it's just a very interesting thing. Having said that, I have gotten ideas for this story that I have logged in that document since then, and it's changed. That's the fun thing. No longer shadow hunters. The story is now actually an adult novel. Like, all of this stuff I'm contributing to, and I don't know that I would have done that or made those changes were it not for the fact that I had to wait and give myself time to get over the hurt of losing that term. So yeah. yeah, this was a rambly kind of discussion. Please do comment down below. What would you do? Do you read comparables that are similar to your work? Do you try to avoid them if someone tells you about them? How do you feel either when you personally realize that your story isn't as original as you thought or hoped it would be? Do you think there's such thing as an original work? Am I asking a lot of questions? Yes, okay. Thank you guys so much for watching whatever this video ended up being, and I will see you all very soon with a new one. Bye. Who did it first? Oh, shoot. Shoot. Thank you guys so much for watching this Preptober pep talk NaNoWriMo writing mashup of a video. I don't think that's a good way to exit this, but okay.